the last few weeks in particular that has actually less to do with the counteroffensive and more to do with incursions of small groups of Ukrainian fighters and drones onto Russian territory. There were eight drones that crashed in Moscow a couple of weeks ago. There have been drones appearing on the internationally recognized territory of Russia um, almost every day for the last couple of weeks. And that creates a kind of plurality of actors in Russia, where local governors, and also there was a major incursion of an actual fighting unit into the Belgorod region about a week ago. There were casualties and there were prisoners taken, possibly hostages, depending whether they're civilians or military. And so that required the local governor of the Belgorod region to actually become an actor in the sport to decide whether he was going to negotiate with the Ukrainians who had entered Russia. This is something we haven't seen before. Russians, very much like Westerners, have seen the Russian military effort as a monolith with Putin at the helm. And what we're seeing now is it's like an inkling, like a stirring of politics for Russians. I wouldn't go too far in drawing conclusions from it, but it is a somewhat new situation.
How destabilizing is it, and how do Russia's elites, feel about what's happening?
I wouldn't overestimate how destabilizing it is. The war has broad support in Russia. It's very, very, very difficult to get accurate sort of measures of what we erroneously call public opinion in a country where there's no public and no opinion. But from what we can tell, right, the support for the war is actually broader now. It's a passive support, but it's broader now than it was even a year ago. Okay? And the same is true of the elites. They have coalesced around Putin. It's I wouldn't fantasize about them suddenly throwing their hat in with somebody else, even somebody like Yevgeny Prigozhin, who's become increasingly more vocal. He has his own private army that has been fighting in Ukraine. He's criticized Putin for not being decisive enough. He's criticized the Russian Ministry of Defense. But while he is important and a destabilizing force for Putin himself, I wouldn't overestimate his influence in Russian society.
But do you feel that there is generally a belief that Russia can't lose this war because it has nuclear weapons?
Putin has made that very clear. Putin, I think, wants to remind us that he is serious when he is engaging his nuclear saber rattling. A couple of days ago, we learned that Russia is about to deploy nuclear weapons on the territory of Belarus. This is, if nothing else, a gesture of preparedness, a signal to the West that yes, when he says that he is ready to use nuclear weapons, he is ready to use nuclear weapons. That's his last resort.
So you don't feel that this is just posturing? I mean, you do think that he's willing to go down that nuclear path? I know it's very difficult to obviously predict his actions, but a lot of people in Europe are of course worried by that.
I think it's a little bit of a false dichotomy. It is just posturing, but just because it's just posturing doesn't mean that he isn't going to carry through with it. There may very well come a point if Russia continues to suffer defeats on the battlefield, and if there continues to be this very sort of worrisome for Putin increase in the number of voices that can be heard inside of Russia about the war, and then he's going to be more tempted and possibly even cornered into a position where he has to assert that he is still in charge of the largest, the most important military force in the country, and possibly, if he resorts to nuclear weapons, the world.
Masha Gessen, thank you so much for this thoughtful and insightful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Besides Putin having the largest nuclear arsenal in the world, if he uses any, have no fear of death, for your true nature is spiritual and eternal. A song by Paul Beckman, Palu song. Also the new and first leader of Humankind in the free world. Well, if Putin uses them, have no fear. Even if he can use them or thinks he must, have no fear of death. Don't fuss, because your true nature is spiritual, which means you're eternal. Sure, the body may disappear and you may not have it anymore. If death comes to you, it'll open up a door. But your life won't be over, though you may find yourself being greater, as the spiritual, universal and void mind, the twin creative aspect of God. Jah, love. Well, that's what you are right now, even though you appear human, with a body and a mind. Well, just thinking on it. Thinking on it. Remember to have no fear of death, because you're spiritual, eternal. Therefore, don't be afraid of Putin and his saber rattling, nuclear saber rattling, ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. Yeah, don't let it faze you. Don't even let it bother you. Don't let his threats of nuclear war disturb you. Because your true essence, your true life is much more than this human life we have. Is really quite poor compared with what you are. Well, so far, you only know yourself as the body and the mind. But wait until you experience yourself as universal and void mind, the creative twin aspect of God. Jah. Oh yeah. Don't let Putin sable rattling disturb you. His nuclear sable rattling. That can't bring you to fear death, because you're eternal, you're universal and void mind. The creative twin aspect of God. Cha, cha, cha. Oh yeah. And so, take from that, you have no fear of Putin. And that gives you the ability to rise against him. Against fear-mongering. Go over there, nab him, take him to The Hague, and let him await his just reward as a war criminal. Well, if Putin uses them, have no fear. Even if he can't use them or thinks he must. Have no fear of death, don't fuss. Because your true nature is spiritual, which means you're eternal. Sure, the body may disappear and you may not have it anymore. If death comes to you, it'll open up a door. But your life won't be over, though you may find yourself being greater, as the spiritual, universal and void mind, the twin creative aspect of God. Jah, love. Well, that's what you are right now, even though you appear human, with a body and a mind. Well, just thinking on it. Thinking on it. Remember to have no fear of death, because you're spiritual, eternal. Therefore, don't be afraid of Putin and his saber rattling, nuclear saber rattling, ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. Yeah, don't let it faze you. Don't even let it bother you. Don't let his threats of nuclear war disturb you. Because your true essence, your true life is much more than this human life we have. Is really quite poor compared with what you are. Well, so far, you only know yourself as the body and the mind. But wait until you experience yourself as universal and void mind, the creative twin aspect of God. Jah. Oh yeah. Don't let Putin sable rattling disturb you. His nuclear sable rattling. That can't bring you to fear death, because you're eternal, you're universal and void mind. The creative twin aspect of God. Jah, jah, jah. Oh yeah. And so, take from that, you have no fear of Putin, and that gives you the ability to rise against him, against fear-mongering. Go over there, nab him, take him to The Hague, and let him await his just reward as a war criminal. What if Putin uses them? Have no fear. Even if he can't use them or thinks he must. Have no fear of death, don't fuss. Because your true nature is spiritual, which means you're eternal. Sure, the body may disappear and you may not have it anymore. If death comes to you, it'll open up a door. But your life won't be over, though you may find yourself being greater, as the spiritual, universal and void mind, the twin creative aspect of God. Jah, love. Well, that's what you are right now, even though you a pure human with a body and a mind. Well, just thinking on it, thinking on it. Remember to have no fear of death because you're spiritual, eternal. Therefore, don't be afraid of Putin and his saber rattling, nuclear saber rattling, ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. Yeah, don't let it faze you. Don't even let it bother you. Don't let his threats of nuclear war disturb you. Because your true essence, your true life is much more than this human life we have. It's really quite poor compared with what you are. Well, so far, you only know yourself as the body and the mind. But wait until you experience yourself as universal and void mind, the creative twin aspect of God. Oh yeah. Don't let Putin's sable rattling disturb you. His nuclear sable rattling. That can't bring you to fear death because you're eternal, you're universal and void mind. The creative twin aspect of God. Oh yeah. And so take from that you have no fear of Putin, and that gives you the ability to rise against him, against fear-mongering. Go over there, nab him, take him to the Hague, and let him await his just reward.